to check accuracy before 3 days of hind stalking in Scotland. OK, we also did the sensible version, which is to shoot a proper deer target at 100, then 200, even 400 metres. I'm at the Ardnamurchan estate as one of several guests of RWS ammunition from Germany, Swarovski optics from Austria and Merkel rifles. A group of 6 influencers, no one's called me that to my face before, are here to go out in pairs over 3 days and take 30 hinds as part of the estate's deer management plan. First up is Aske Rif from Denmark, also known as the hunting photographer on Instagram.
I'm expecting beautiful scenery, a lot of crawling, maybe some rain. I've heard a lot about the Scottish weather, so I'm looking forward to see what the day will bring. I don't really have any expectations. I usually don't hunt with expectations. I just see what happens. And
is it going to be anything like a country you've been to before, like Sweden?
Yeah, it looks like a mixture of Iceland and maybe Sweden as well. Yeah.
Stalker today is our old friend Niall Rowantree, who's able to make Aske feel strangely at home.
Ardnamurchan means the point of the Great Sea, and that's one of the few names that the area has that has Gaelic origin. The peak behind you is known locally, well, its name is Ben Hind or Ben Hind. So Benya is a Gaelic word meaning mountain, and Hind, there's no Gaelic word for this. It's a Scandinavian word meaning sacred. So he may have arrived here by airplane, but most of his ancestors arrived here a long time ago in longships. And if we look at a lot of the Celtic heraldry of the area, and particularly Clan Donald's sort of logos and stuff you see with Clan Campbell, you see a Viking longship as part of their coat of arms. And what we know here is by about 900, Vikings were settling up the western seaboard. They'd established centres like Dublin, and by the time they arrived in Ardnamurchan, there was certain evidence that it was Scandinavian, so you say Danish and Swedish Vikings coming one way and Norwegian Vikings coming down the coast in the other direction. And many of the hills round about here, like the mountains on Rum of Trollval and Breckval and Ben Hind and Loch Sunert, the origin being Sven's Fjord, give you a clear indication that it's not the first time one of his kind have been here. And Ben Hind, it's really quite interesting, as the environmentalists would tell us that there should be covered in heathland and woodland. And it's where do you want to stop history? Because in the Viking sagas it refers to Ben Hind as green to the tops. And if you look at it, it's still to this day green to the tops.
Back to the deer, and on the way up the hill we start to get a sense of the quality of animals here.
It's quite an important area for deer, really good grassland area. And what we're at today is just keeping the hind numbers in balance with the vegetation here. At the moment we're looking at a group that is a big hind with a strong hind calf, a big yelled hind and an older yelled hind. So out of this group of 4, there's one on the left that we'll go and have a closer look at. But in this wind today, I expect 2 or 3 other groups tucked in the ledges just around the corner.
It's not long before Aske gets to point his rifle, but this group is too quick for us.
Well, what happened there is we came around that little fold in the hill, as I said to you, there were more groups of deer than the first one we could see. And the wind is shifting to the east today, and famous sort of family, a lot of stalkers will tell you that nothing good came out of the east except the 3 wise men and the British Expeditionary Force. And you'll find an easterly wind, it's not their usual wind, and they're kind of kittle anyway, and there was just a puff of wind went up there. It lifted that first hind and calf, and as they moved away they drew the rest down behind them. But looking at them as they go away, it was a good chance to see that there were a lot of really good hinds there with strong calves at foot. And considering the year we had last year, these deer have done very well. And as the group sort of spread out, the only one that was there that was shootable, she didn't present herself at all. So far better than disturbing the whole day and acting in haste. Just let them quietly go away, and we'll just keep going and round the corner to the next group.
They're still visible actually in the background as well.
Yeah, you can see them in the background, yeah. I think I've noticed too in the ravens, when they start flying about above us, the ravens get the hind's attention as well. Yep. And you can see one of the hinds there looking up at the ravens going, why is it here?
Yep. And when you're watching that last one run, what was it about her that you reckon was, made her less good than the others?
Well, I'm quite demanding out of what I want for the hinds here. I mean, there's an awful lot of issues go on this hillside. This area is a species-rich grassland at the moment. It's designated as a site of special scientific interest. So there's a requirement on us to manage the deer on this site in balance, so that we don't have negative grazing or trampling impacts. So the deer that we've got here, because of the environment, are healthy deer, and there's a requirement on us to keep the numbers to a sensible level so they don't have a negative impact. And to my mind, that's a prescription for only having the very best. And where she, to my mind, fails is compared with the physical structure of the others you've got. She's lighter, she's slighter, she's shorter, and if somebody's going to come out, you might as well take the poorer ones away and leave the better ones to get on with it.
Hugin and Munin were Odin's ravens. Maybe he set them on us. Well, if so, we're better than them, because it's not long before Aske and Niall can stalk in on an unalarmed group of hinds.
Yeah, we spotted some hinds. And we had a little bit of a crawl, and then Neil pointed out a small hind. And I got comfortable, and when she got broadside, I just fired, and she went down. And we had a try on some of the others, but it didn't work out.
Niall is happy with the shot on the beast that Aske brings down.
Looking at it, and obviously whenever the gentleman's there that shot the thing, you've always got to be pleasant about them anyway. But to be absolutely honest here, the shot's well placed. He's tucked it in nicely behind the shoulder. You can see where she stumbled forward. You've got a good clear blood strike and a trail down on the grass there. She dropped to the shot, well, basically stumbled and dropped to the shot. Shot smack on. Animal was killed straight away, and we saw her earlier on in the day. Small ginger coated hind. Reason for her being there: short bodied, close, narrow chested. We don't really want to put big stags on little hinds like that, so she's better off away. But it's a food product now, nice and clean, good bullet hole, good bullet trail, right animal to take out, and a good shot.
Next outing is away from the high hills. Indeed, it starts on the flat. Stalker is Alistair, and guest with the rifle is Sebastian Graf von Stauffenberg. Oops, and it is down for the count. Now, I posted this clip on Facebook, and all you unsympathetic buggers asked if the rifle was all right. Yes, Sebastian is fine, thank you. And the rifle is not only all right, it did not lose its 0. Worth rechecking after a tumble like that. Back to the car and start again.
Well, I have to say every day surprised me, because it's wherever we went with the PHs, it's the entire flora and fauna is completely different every time. It's different kind of stalking. Every PH has their own style in stalking. For example, yesterday with Chris, I can understand why they call him the mountain goat. Basically running up hills while we're feeling like rhinos behind him.
There's only some hinds out here. Neil's very concerned that he wants to remove because of the new boundary fence here. So he said some of the stags during the rut have been running up and down this fence and damaging the fence. So he's wanting me to take some of these hinds out to reduce the numbers for the stags for next year, running up and down the fence and damaging it. So these deer are right close to that fence today, so we'll go out there and have a wee look to see how we get on.
Alistair takes us to within a few hundred yards of the hinds without being spotted.
We can just see them from this angle here, so we're going to go round this corner, and then we'll be able to see them up the valley. They're only about 150 metres. We can't see them clearly, so we need to be round.
The last part is a crawl.
Right, so the deer we're after are just behind the rocks and above us in a gully, but there's some more on the other slope. So there's a stag and 3 females. But we have to be very careful because those are on the other side of the fence and not for us to take. So we have to really carefully approach the ones we're after so they don't see us and get spooked. You see the 4 deer down here, but there's maybe about 8 in total. I'm just watching a small hind down here with a calf. And so we put ourselves a wee bit more over to the right there, we'll get into a good shooting position.
After more than an hour watching and waiting, the hind stands up and Sebastian shoots. It's down in 1. Alistair grallochs the animal, and then we enjoy lunch in the unusual November sunshine. And then Sebastian faces the horror of crossing back over that burn without falling in. Last day on the hinds, it's back to Niall, and this time the stalker is Michael Ott of Optik's company Swarovski. We are back on Ben Hiant, the hill that Niall keeps as the centrepiece of his deer management operation at Ardnamurchan. Today he wants to take advantage of the unusual east wind.
This is part of the Ben Hiant, it's part of the SAC, and again the deer are part of what happens here with the cattle and the sheep. and we're just taking our annual cull out of these herds here.
An SAC is a special area of conservation and comes with a raft of restrictions on what you can and can't do.
It'll be interesting. I mean, yes, they say that all of the legislation surrounding it has been enshrined and will stay. I think what's going to happen and needs to happen is we need to have a more sensible debate nationally about how we manage our wild places and our natural environments and what we expect from them to do with farming, crofting, deer stalking and, to use the term, wilding.
Let's talk tactics for the day.
Well, what we're doing, we've had the sort of 2 weeks now, and almost 3 in fact, of the wind being out either the north and or the east, which means other parts of the country have been waterlogged and the weather's been hammering them. Whereas when the weather goes like this here, what it does do is it means we get a period of dry weather. The east wind though isn't our prevailing wind. The prevailing wind is from that direction, the southwest. So what the deer have done is they've moved themselves into areas of shelter for an easterly wind, which means I've got to work a little bit harder. So what we're going to do here is go down through the bay of Camasnagale and along the shore, and then work our way back into the easterly wind, because to stay out of the cold wind, the deer have tucked themselves into the leeward shelter. And we basically need the wind on our face to close the gap and get in on them.
We start on the beach where the original muscular Christian St Columba landed in the 6th century and brought his new religion to Scotland. There are remains of an ancient church here and a Clan MacDonald graveyard from before the time of Bonnie Prince Charlie. From there we stalk into position and Niall gives his instructions to Michael. He has an old hind in mind that has a good quality but dependent calf. With them are a couple of good yearlings. Niall wants Michael to shoot the calf and then the old hind, because she is unlikely to survive the winter, and if she doesn't, neither will her calf, however good it is. The hind runs on adrenaline and then falls.
That's terrific. I need to calm down a little bit now. But it's good. It's always good if the hunt ends well. So the nervosity kicks in, and I'm wearing down the adrenaline now, and it will be good. It will be calming down. But it's for me the moment just after the shot is always a moment of remorse, I would say. So it's difficult moment for me, but yeah, it's part of the hunting here.
While they wait for the 2 yearlings to clear the area, Niall explains to Michael how deer management at Ardnamurchan works.
This year has been one of the best growth years here for 10 years.
Wow.
So we should have a good calving next year.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is, you're thinking of in generations, sort of cohorts. You're trying to make sure that you've got good quality deer through all the different cohorts.
Yeah.
And you have to be quite ruthless when the amount of range you have available, only the very best. And I think that's where we win over their idea of predators controlling them. We're the most efficient predator at this.
Yeah.
And this population here stands a testament of that. I mean, the average stag here weighs 18.5 stone, and we're sitting sort of 42 to 44% fecundity, and about 20% of our yearlings are fertile and are going to the stag. So it works.
Yeah.
It's just basically farming at 150 metres.
Yes.
Yeah, and the whole thing about guys like you doing it or me doing it is that you've got the right equipment, you've got the right attitude, you've got the competence to do it. So really, from an ethics point of view, you doing it or me doing it, the same job's happening.
Yeah.
So that it's difficult to understand why people have a problem with you doing this.
And for me, it's a way of using the land, and the people here have been using the land not only for the last 50 years but for the last centuries.
Yes.
And it's the most productive way of
Absolutely.
using the land.
Well, there's no doubt that in this type of vegetation, nothing converts it more effectively into protein than deer do.
Yeah.
Now let's leave Ardnamurchan for a couple of minutes and have a look at another area of Scotland, one where government policy has taken control and it's turning into a wildlife catastrophe. Nicola Sturgeon wants to wipe out Scotland's deer. She wants to replant the Highlands with trees like this one, a sessile oak. These are the MacLachlan Mountains, which lie to the south of Inverness. They are one of the great strongholds of Scottish red deer. This woman, Sigrid Rousing, heir to the Tetra Pak fortune and owner and editor of anti-hunting magazine Granta, also owns Coinifern in the middle of the mountains. In line with what Nicola wants, Sigrid's people are systematically killing the deer here, so she can plant and grow trees. She has killed so many that at least one neighbouring estate stopped stalking deer this year. There are none left. Like everything with wildlife management, it's complicated. Some of the neighbouring estates have increased their deer cull too, either because they're being paid by Nicola's government to do so, or because they believe that reducing deer numbers increases grouse numbers. To her credit, Sigrid is using her own money for her massacre. Before Sigrid Rousing started her genocide against deer, you could see thousands of good quality animals at Coinifern and across the Monotliards. The indiscriminate shooting of deer has not only reduced numbers, it has reduced the quality of the animals that are left. Nicola's biggest problem is still to come, but we have seen the first signs. Scotland's climate is changing, the weather is getting warmer. Sessile oaks do not thrive in Scotland like they once did. Nicola is creating the perfect conditions for wildfires, like the 23 square miles of Morrisshire and the 22 square miles of the Flow country that caught fire this year. Under Nicola's plan, what's left of the wildlife is going to burn to death. Back at Ardnamurchan, and again, the guests here this week talk about the landscape. That's what most attracts them to stalking in Scotland.
I've never hunted in anything like that. It's so incredibly beautiful, and not only because of the weather, but here with the sea and the mountains and the green and the brown and the grass. This is impressive. The landscape, the scenery, it's just great. It's just terrific. And hearing from Niall how it's managed and how it's kept up, it's really good to see. I don't know any other place where you'd have a landscape like that. And for me, coming from the mountains, from the Alps, it's a complete change. And I just love the landscape here. You'll see me here more often, I'm sure.
What a great week, and thanks to RWS, which is launching a new Hot 308 round I promised I won't talk about until February. Thanks to Merkel, which is bringing out the K5 break barrel single shot rifle you saw in that film, and to Swarovski, which provided the super quality scopes and binos. The great sadness about this film is that while Nicola is trying to destroy Scotland's wild places, Boris is trying to stop people like Michael from coming to Scotland. And, like it or not, it is people like Michael and Sebastian and Aske who pay for Scotland to look as lovely as it does.